Welcome to the ANEW Insight Podcast, empowering and inspiring your journey to optimal health. Hosted by Dr. Supatra Tovar, clinical psychologist, registered dietitian, fitness expert, and author of Deprogrammed Diet Culture. Rethink your relationship with food, heal your mind, and live a diet-free life. And Chantal Donnelly, physical therapist and author of Settled, How to Find Calm in a Stress-Inducing World. We follow our guests' journey to optimal health, providing you with the keys to unlock your own wellness path. Tune in and evolve with us. Welcome back to the ANEW Insight Podcast. We are back for the second half of our amazing interview with mindfulness guru and expert Donald Altman. He gave us some really powerful background about his transition from a hectic and unfulfilling life to becoming a Buddhist monk in the hills of San Bernardino, and how he transitioned into the eating disorder world, especially as a counselor, and became this internationally known mindfulness expert. We are so excited to learn more. Welcome back, Donald.
Oh, thanks, Supatra. Great to be here.
Yay, we're so excited. So you went into the eating disorder treatment world, worked there for a long time, worked with Jean Christeller, who's amazing. Tell us about how all of this transitioned for you into teaching and conducting workshops. Tell us about that kind of transition for you.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's just something I probably never could have predicted. It was one of my teachers at Lewis and Clark who had done some works for a workshop, had done some trainings in a workshop company, and she asked if I was interested in doing that kind of thing. I guess they were looking for some people, and I thought, oh yeah, I'd love to try that. And so I created a mindful eating workshop. That was the first workshop I did on the road. And so I'd go out, you go out for 3 days in different cities, and I really loved it. I found that people loved doing the mindful eating practices, and I would have them eat a raisin using what I call the STOP method, which is select, taste, observe, and then pause.
Wonderful.
And they were shocked that we'd eat a raisin in 20 minutes, one raisin. And then sometimes I'd say, well, should we do another raisin? And people would say, no, I'm too full now. I
couldn't. Too much raisin.
Too much. Well, they were fulfilled as opposed to just filled up, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, it was and then I expanded into more broader mindfulness and wrote a book that was the Mindfulness Toolbox, which turned out to be a best-selling book in the psychology field. And so I made that into a workshop, and I did 1, 2, and 3 day trainings. The 3 day trainings were great because I was actually get time to teach people, a lot of these practices in a more deeper, sustainable way. So they'd get to learn how they work with partners, and they get to, teach a partner, and they got to really experience mindfulness. And I mean, I had some people come up to me. We would do mindful walking, we would do mindful eating, the breath work, other face-to-face work that I would have them do for compassion, for example. And I mean, I at times had people come up to me after workshop with tears, saying, that they were so moved by the experience, and that's made it for me. That made it all worthwhile getting on the road and traveling around. That if you could touch somebody's life in that way. Now these were mostly psychotherapists, so and they were touched by this at that level. So and for them to be able to then bring that to their clients for depression or anxiety or whatever, it meant a lot to me. But I remember one time. We were doing mindful walking, and there was a lady who came up after the exercise and had tears in her eyes. And she said, I grew up with her brain wasn't wired right. And she said, I had no sense of proprioception, which is the ability to know where your body is in space. So if you close your eyes, she said, I would just fall over. Whoa. She said, but something happened when I was doing this walking, and I had them start by moving near a wall so they could because if you're moving slowly and you haven't done it, you could lose your balance a little bit.
Yeah.
So at the end of the practice, we did 20 minutes and a little more than that actually a second time. And she said, something must have happened in my brain because I closed my eyes and I could do this for the
Wow.
first, yeah, it was amazing. And
I
I
wonder what
don't,
was blocking her before.
I don't know. I don't know. And it would sometimes, and then I would show some videos of people doing amazing things with balance and presence. There was a
Hmm.
lady who had these, I wish I could remember. She used to be with Cirque du Soleil, I
Oh,
heard, and she was on one of these star shows where you do something very unique. And so she had all these long, like bamboo, uh, really they were intricately shaped pieces of wood, I guess, and she stacked them and balanced them one on another, and then she'd put them on her head and they were balanced. But if she lost focus for even a tenth of a second, it'd probably all fall down,
wow.
what she was able to do. And so I showed that to the group first, and they were shocked that somebody, because we move so quickly. I had people when we'd be doing this mindful walking in hotels or outside hotels. I had people at the front desk running up to me, asking me if I was okay.
You're
Because
like,
I was
yeah,
moving so
I'm just
slowly.
present.
Oh my God, he's having a stroke,
No, this is just what being in the present moment looks like. I'm fine. I'm fine. That's awesome.
So it was yeah, so that's kind of how I moved into that, and I did that for many years. And at some point I was balancing having a private practice with doing the road work and writing books, and finally decided to make the shift to all of the training, which I did after
Wow.
many years. It was
Good. So
a little too hard to do both after a while, but
I can attest to that right now. It's like you're juggling two different careers
mm,
almost, and
yeah.
it's if you don't really practice self-care, and you're traveling all the time, and that can really take it out on of you. And how can you transition back into therapy? It's very difficult. So
Yeah, it
I
was a
mean,
challenge. And
well, I think you've been called to give this message on a wider scale than, I mean, it's wonderful to do it one on one, but you have reached so many people. I want to hear about the
yeah.
movie. I have not seen this movie, and I want to know
Oh,
how we can all see this. And just tell us how you got involved in it, and how did it contribute to the broader
yeah.
understanding of mindfulness?
I think this movie really, it was called the Mindfulness Movie, and
Hmm.
it was on Netflix. I'm not sure if it's on Netflix anymore, but you can go to the
Hmm.
mindfulnessmovie.com
Oh,
website,
good.
and I'm sure that's where you can get a copy or find out how to stream it.
Okay.
And Paul Harrison, who was a Zen student,
Hmm.
and really like a Zen master. He was also an architect and a fascinating background. And he decided he wanted to make this movie. And so he's the host, and he does a fantastic job. I mean, in the beginning of the movie, and there's different segments in there. There's a segment on neuroscience and mindfulness, a segment on schools and mindfulness, segment on the military and mindfulness, um,
Mm.
stress and mindfulness. So it's got all these great elements. But I remember the movie starts, he's walking around the streets, and he was living in the Los Angeles area at the time. And so he's
Mm.
part of his, I think he went up to Universal Studios or, in Studio City or somewhere like that. And he's got his microphone. He's saying, we're doing a documentary on mindfulness. Do you know anything about mindfulness? And it was surprising how many people were like, no, I don't know anything about what is it.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so that's how the movie started. But then he gets into really bringing in a lot of experts, and I was felt honored to be part of that group. Turned out that uh, Jeffrey Schwartz, who wrote the book Brain Lock and had the
Mm.
same mindfulness teacher as me, Uthil Ananda.
Wow.
I met him, Jeffrey, one time. We became friends, and but he also consulted with Leonardo DiCaprio on the Howard Hughes movie.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. So that was kind of Jeffrey Schwartz's history, but he referred me to Paul Harrison, and Paul came up here to Portland and where I'm living and interviewed me there for the movie. But I think
Mm,
the movie made a huge difference. I've shown it in clips and um, for the breathing part and the stress part. He brings a lot of science in, and especially the neuroscience of how mindfulness rewires the brain. And
totally.
it's very cool stuff. So it's a real kind of cutting edge film in that way, and it's very relevant. Brings in the
I
work of
think
John Kabat-Zinn and so forth.
I think that's great. I definitely am going to check that out. I do think when you do ask people what mindfulness is, they're like, I don't know. So it's a really good place to point them to give them a really quality piece of work to show them the applications of it, the benefits of it. And I can attest to those benefits. I think, I started practicing mindfulness and mindfulness meditation when I started in my dietetics program for
Oh,
nutritional
yeah.
science because I was so stressed out. It was like I was coming back into grad school and I'm like, oh my God, biochemistry, and I have to memorize so
Yeah.
many things. And it has, I think, fundamentally changed me. I used to be very anxious, very wound up, I think negative in a lot of ways. Mind was just all over the place. And it really
Yeah.
has helped me to center me and to create more objectivity. It's helped me to be able to regulate my emotions. It's made me more compassionate and empathetic over the years, especially. It's just, you see these benefits, and they've documented this has been proven that
Yeah.
it really, like, the more you practice it, the more you benefit from it. So I'm going to tell everybody, I'm going to put that into the little show notes as well. Go to mindfulnessmovie.com and check this out, and I'm
I
going to be
have,
watching it as well.
yeah, no, that's great. And I've shown it, I've shown clips to clients, I've shown it in groups, and
That's
it really
awesome.
makes an impact on people to see that. And
Mm-hmm.
the other thing about mindfulness, it kind of normalizes or depathologizes us, right? And it
Yeah.
normalizes that these are the thoughts and the feelings that we're as humans that we all have to deal with.
Yes,
But it helps us
absolutely.
manage and deal with it in a much better way than you're not taught how to do this in school, unfortunately. Although I have been invited and gone to some high schools and the kids loved it.
Oh, absolutely. I think kids absolutely love it, and they're probably better at
Yeah.
it than we are. I don't know why, but they just really, really become attuned to it, and they can just shift their mind. I think it's just because they're just so open, and when we're open,
Yeah.
it's easier to adopt something new, and to practice something. And for kids, their attention goes all over the place, but having them focus on one thing can be really, really powerful for them. Transitioning out of that, I'm curious how you got involved with psychology today. You do this practical mindfulness blog. Tell us about that,
Oh,
and
yeah.
give us an overview
The
of it.
the blog is one of my favorite things to do, actually, because I get to approach, in a very short way, a specific topic. So I'll have something on like the one word that conquers dementia, the one word that which is sleep. Well,
I
dementia.
was like, what is it, Donald? Help. Okay,
The
good.
one
I
word that
sleep.
overcomes jealousy, which is mudita, which is sympathetic joy or appreciative joy, right? And so I'll
Ooh.
have these, you have to come up with a catchy title or something, but it's all these different ways that I'm able to really kind of target in on a topic and give people a
Mm.
short training. What I do in all my work, and I think maybe that's what's made my work a little different from some others, is I'm big on the skills and the training. And that's the thing
Yes.
about mindfulness. I could sit and explain mindfulness, but unless you actually practice it, it's not going to
Mm-hmm.
take. It's like, I can pour Ajax in a tub, but you have to scrub,
Mm.
or the tub's not going to get cleaned with the Ajax
Right.
just sitting there, right?
Right.
And so mindfulness is that scrubbing agent, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it polishes things off. It helps you see. It gets through the, uh, you know, the film and the dirt and everything. Lets you see things in a more clear, direct way.
Right.
right? Where you don't have to
Okay.
push things away, you don't have to grab onto things, you can just see it for what it is. And there's a lot of liberation in that. There's a lot of freedom in just like seeing, oh, this is the reality of it, right?
Oh,
Instead of the
yeah.
energy I have of trying to avoid something or
Hmm.
trying to grab onto something constantly, craving desire or rejection. It's about attachment. How do we attach to things? And mindfulness really helps you live in a much freer way. And maybe
Hmm.
that's where you're talking about the kids, how they're more adaptable or whatever, but it
Hmm.
allows you to live, I think, more flexibly. You're not attached to your schemas, your belief systems, your ideas, so like they're written in stone, and
Exactly.
and you're able to make changes in your life.
Yes. Okay. I love that about jealousy. I think that that's a really, really great way to reframe and to look at a situation differently. We all, I think, are familiar with the Ben Franklin quote that comparison is the thief of joy. So I really like the tie into
Oh
that.
yeah.
Tell me I have clients that struggle with this all the time when they're in the beginnings of the recovery process, weight restoration especially, and there is so much anxiety about the weight gain, and they get so fixated on the weight gain. What would you give them as a mindfulness exercise to help to settle their nervous system through that process?
Yeah, I would think about that's almost like equanimity.
Hmm.
Mudita, which is it's one of what are known as the divine abodes, or um, uh, the four divine abodes, uh, where if you were enlightened, these are the things you would strive for. And one would be, as I mentioned, mudita, sympathy of joy, which just means
Hmm.
having appreciation for the success of others, right?
Mm.
And if it's interesting, if you have that, it's incompatible with feelings of jealousy or anger, all
Hmm.
right? So it's a very different way of being present in the world. And
Right.
then karuna is compassion,
Mm.
right? Upekkha is equanimity, which means realizing things are always in flux, always changing,
Yes.
right? This is the nature of life. This is
Yes.
impermanence, right?
Yes.
And so you could look around and you could see that impermanence is everywhere. You know, we're not the same as we were as little children. Thank God we were able to grow and evolve, right?
Mm.
And so everything is in flux, and
Hmm.
so is our weight constantly in flux. And if you could live with and invite in equanimity, that
I
upekkha,
love it.
and
I love
also
it. That's it.
also self
Oh.
love, metta, which is the
Hmm.
fourth one is loving kindness, right? We send it to
Hmm.
ourselves first because to help kind of um, because we need it. We need uh, to overcome the pains and struggles of life. So, uh, inviting that wish for our own well-being is so important.
Oh, I feel like I kind of passed the test because I was dealing with this actually yesterday, and I just tried to stress that life is not permanent and that
Mm,
change is inevitable, and
yeah,
this is a temporary state that you're in. And if you can be kind and compassionate to yourself and know that you're on the road to healing, you can
yeah,
then withstand this discomfort, and just sitting with the discomfort, but understanding and knowing that you're doing something loving for yourself, that you are deconditioning really old and unhelpful ways of thinking, and you are trying to reformulate something that's more kind and loving.
mm,
Especially when you
yeah,
regulate your nervous system, your body responds so much better than if you're in that heightened, stressed, anxious
yeah,
state. And then, understanding that you can move past that and then come to a place of peace with your body. It may not be where you were before when you were essentially emaciated and having body dysmorphia and really
right.
thinking of yourself as fat when you were, very, very thin. You're going to get to that place where you actually see yourself more realistically and more in a healthy fashion. So I really love that. I'm going to and give me the four.
Well,
Uh,
there's mudita, sympathy of joy.
okay.
Upeka is the equanimity.
Okay.
Karuna is compassion, and Metta is loving kindness. So those are the four divine abodes, as they're often
Hmm.
called.
Wow, I feel like I'm in class with Donald Altman, you guys, and
But I
I
love
mean,
what you
this is
said about, yeah, I love what you said about, equanimity. Working with your clients also means letting go of that perfectionism, right?
yes.
That's an extreme, right? Having to have it be exactly this way, or being stuck in a rigid way of eating or thinking or viewing your
Hmm.
body.
Hmm.
And so it's letting go, it's surrendering to that. They had this thing, and I wrote about this in one of my mindfulness blogs. I called it "Escape the Monkey Trap of Unhappiness." So, one of the things I used to do, or so I've heard, to capture monkeys is to take a gourd and they'd hollow it out and nail it to the ground or attach it to the ground, and then cut an opening just big enough for the animal to put its hand through, and they'd put
Mm.
food in there. But once the monkey grabbed and made a fist, grabbed that food, it couldn't pull its hand out of the hole. The
Hmm.
only way to escape is to relax and let
And
go.
let go.
Yeah, is to let go of that attachment, right, and to
Hmm.
relax. It's the same thing with
Yes.
that, the finger trap, the little
Yep.
woven. Yeah, if you
Mm.
pull hard, you can't escape it. You have to actually relax your hands and then slowly remove your fingers. It's the same idea.
Hmm.
So how can we, look at what is entrapping us, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
So that
Hmm.
idea of I've got to have this perfect body, or I have to look like this, or I have to die, is a very rigid expectation. We need to relax and learn how to release.
Right, because I think imperfection is life. And
Hmm.
living,
I
I
love that.
like, and I think, I've dealt with so many people who and treated so many people who come in with that all or nothing perfectionist mindset.
Yeah.
And it's either success or failure. It's either thin or fat. It's like one or the other. It's very binary. And I love to get them into what I call the gray. And the gray area is a place where they can just see both sides, not necessarily be striving for one or the other, or despairing about going to the other, and then just learning how to kind of be. And that's helped so many of my clients uh, stop their binge eating in particular, because it's very one or the other. It's like
But how do you replace an emotion, right?
mm-hmm,
There are a lot of things you just can't replace. We're complex, organic, holistic beings, unlike a car, which
mm-hmm,
has a finite number of parts and just you can swap them out, right? But you can't do that with a human being. So the mindfulness is kind of what I think of as a commitment and skills approach,
yes,
acceptance and commitment and skills. So you can accept that, whatever this problem is right now, uh, is where you're at, you're dealing
mm-hmm,
with, and you can learn some skills. And
yes,
mindfulness is one of the skills that you can learn, or you can learn other skills around healthy eating.
mm-hmm,
And it's a longer process. That's the thing about the mechanical replacement process, is it's quick,
yeah,
right? And
right,
sometimes it works with the body. You might be able to replace a hip or a knee or whatever and go through rehab, but for a lot of things that you're talking about with mindful eating and depression, anxiety, that's a process that people have to
mm-hmm,
go through, and they have
yes,
to learn how to tolerate, right? That
mm-hmm,
sometimes it's a slow process to heal because we are
mm-hmm.
holistic beings.
Yes, I love that. That's really powerful. And I think it just brings the compassionate part in both,
Mm.
as a therapist to, help them to, cultivate their own compassion, but to also have compassion for the process, and that you are going in a direction that is toward healing. And if you can do that with that relaxation, the letting go of the expectation of the perfection, then that gets you there a lot faster than if you go fighting and screaming, trying to
Yeah.
maintain that black and white type of thinking. Well, we're so close to out of time, and I can't believe it. But I want to talk about your new book. Tell us everything,
Oh,
because it's
yeah.
coming out soon, and we want to know, and we want to buy it and read it. So tell us about it.
It's called Simply Mindful Meal by Meal, and it's
Mm-hmm.
101 mindful ways to create a healthy relationship with food. And
Yay.
so yeah, these are uh, they're each page starts with a quote
Mm-hmm.
and then a commentary that you're dealing with,
Mm-hmm.
and then a one-page meditation. So on 2 pages, you get the complete training for each one of
Mm-hmm.
these 101 practices. And the thing about it that I wanted to do with this book was I bring people into the what I call the four-step food journey. So the book's divided
Mm-hmm.
in 4 parts. First
Mm-hmm.
part, when you think about it, is entry into the meal. How are you
Mm-hmm.
feel? What are your emotions when you come into the meal? What are you feeling? What is
Mm-hmm.
your hunger level? And so that's all that
Mm-hmm.
kind of teaching and training around making people aware of entry into the meal, right?
Love it.
Because if you're angry when you're entering, you're gonna eat anger, right? Or
Yes.
you're gonna eat fast. You're gonna do something that's not
Mm-hmm.
really, or you might just if you're hungry, if you're excessively hungry, you might order the wrong kind of food just to because you're not in a place of moderate hunger where you can more carefully assess what the body needs.
Totally.
Yeah. And then the second part is preparation. So preparation could be a lot of things from how do you prepare your space for the meal? How do you prepare the foods that you're going to eat? Which
Mm.
foods are you
Mm-hmm.
deciding to eat? Right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, even going shopping is a preparation part of your preparation practice. And
Mm-hmm.
retail food stores, there are a lot of things that you don't know about their trying to shape your behavior. And
Oh
so I
yeah.
talk about some of those things in the book too to help people become more aware. Mindfulness is all about increasing your awareness.
Yes.
Your mindfulness quotient, your MQ.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then there's the eating part, which is the third part of the book. And so with
Mm.
the eating part, that's not just the eating the food, but it's also about community. It's about recognition that every food stuff uh, brings in a complete community, right?
Yes.
And so there's a lot of practices in there, not just about specifically eating, but about recognition of how to relate to others and
Mm.
sharing and giving. So it's
Beautiful.
yeah. And then the last part is transitioning out of the meal, right?
Mm.
Is exiting the meal. And because I
Mm-hmm.
found a lot of people didn't, and this was my case maybe when I was younger and was dealing with food issues, is that I didn't know when the meal ended. And so I might
Mm-hmm.
keep eating, or I might,
Yes.
it's time to know how can I leave that last meal with a sense of grace, knowing that I'm sated, I've had enough, and that I can move on to the next thing now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the four steps. They're calling it the four-step food journey, and that's how the book's organized. And again, it's
Yes.
very experiential, and I think and anybody can use the book how they want. You could use it, randomly open up and let the universe be your guide as to what I'm
Mm-hmm.
supposed to learn now.
Mm-hmm.
You could go through a particular section at a time.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Or you can look at the different headings and different titles of the chapters which describe what it's about and just pick out what you need in this moment. So there are a
Oh
lot of
yeah.
different ways to use the book.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really valuable to have those four steps, because a person might come in and realize they have the major problem with step four. I don't know when the meal's over. Oh, maybe it's because I didn't do one, two, and three first. I didn't really,
Mm,
enter
yeah.
into the thinking, like deciding for myself, listening to my body. Am I actually hungry, or am I too hungry? I didn't take enough time to like really think about the food that I'm getting, and all of the other things that you need to do to know when the actual meal is over. Sometimes we just move so fast, we
Oh,
eat
yeah.
so fast, and we know that it takes 20 minutes for the mind to register the presence of food in your belly. So you do need to go slower. And we're just not conditioned to do that in this culture. And so many people, you see them
That's
eating in their
true.
cars, and I'm like, no, don't do that. You're seeing them eating at their desk in front of their computer, and like,
I think it's
oh,
a shame that even in schools that they've tried to limit the amount of time that kids have to eat to maybe 15 minutes in some schools.
yes,
And I just
yes,
think that's doing a disservice to people and making food like it's not important, right? What's the
yes,
message? Oh, it's just,
yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
not
and you go to
important.
France and it's completely different. They'll spend all day on a meal practically. It's and
Sign me up for
you'll eat there. Oh,
that.
the heaven. I was like, "Oh my gosh, can we have more of this? I could
Yeah.
do this all day." And you can, really, in France. Oh, Donald, we're out of time. I can't even believe this.
Oh
But
no.
tell people how they can get a hold of you. Tell them when the book is going to come out and how they can order it.
We can go to my website, which is mindfulpractices.com. That's MINDFUL practices.com.
Okay.
You can contact me through that website, or my email is info@mindfulpractices.com. And the
Mm-hmm.
book is going to be on all the Amazon sites in different countries, wherever you happen to be
Mm-hmm.
located. And that's probably the
Wonderful.
best way to get it. And then
Okay.
that's part of Simply Mindful book series, actually. So this is the fourth in that series. So take a look. You might find some of the others interesting to you. Actually, I have one here. Simply Mindful was the first book, and this is actually a self-contained mindfulness course and a handbook for mindful living. So if you're
Yay.
not familiar with mindfulness, kind of wanted to go and start from the beginning and learn about it, that would be a good way to do
Mhm.
that.
Okay. And you are just one of the kindest, most accessible people. I mean, you just are
Oh,
really compassionate and
thank you.
open-hearted, and I am so incredibly grateful for the help that you've given me on my book, and I really hope the help I'm giving you is helpful for your book. You are absolutely just this bright shining light, and I am
Oh,
so
that's very kind.
grateful. I hope that you can stay in my life forever. That's my hope. I really do feel connected
Well,
to
I
you.
feel very fortunate that we did connect, Supatra. So thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yay. And we'll definitely have to have you back on the show another time, because you just are a wealth of wisdom. And I know that, your, practical application of mindfulness can be so helpful to anyone who's struggling with eating disorders or disordered eating, but really just anything, depression, anxiety, anything. It's
Yeah.
so valuable what you're teaching, and we're just so lucky you're out here doing that.
Well, thank you, and bless you for the work you're doing. And
Thank
um,
you.
yeah, our books will make nice
Okay.
bookends.
I know. I love it. They go hand in hand, and it's
Yeah,
beautiful.
yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you everyone for joining in on this amazing conversation with mindfulness guru Donald Altman. We are so blessed and lucky to have him, and we're going to get him back. I promise you. Thank you so much. We will look forward to seeing you with our next exciting interview, and we really hope you join us. Thanks for tuning into the ANEW Body Insight Podcast. Please remember, the content shared on this podcast is for entertainment purposes only and does not constitute medical advice. You can find us anywhere podcasts are streaming, on YouTube at my.anew.insight and at anew-insight.com under the ANEW Body Insight Podcast tab. Follow us on our socials at my.anew.insight on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Threads for more updates. Tune in next time and evolve with us.